Hi everyone, InfiniteCaz here, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about a part of the game that every player needs to master in order to succeed, and that's your mindset. Splatoon is a game with many ups and downs, and if you want to improve in the long run, it's so important to have the right mental attitude every time you boot up the game. I want to go through my thoughts on this, as well as giving some advice, specifically if you are interested in competitive, but may be put off by the steep learning curve and such. With that out of the way, let's get right into it. So what makes a good mental attitude when playing Splatoon? It's tricky to summarise in a single sentence, but I believe it comes down to being level-headed throughout games, as well as keeping a positive but realistic set of expectations for short and long-term goals. You should also be open to change and be willing to adapt to new playstyles, weapons, etc. etc. Finally, it's so important to treat others in the community with respect. It helps everyone if you stay away from negativity altogether. So now let's break this down a bit more, starting with your attitude in games. Like any other online game, you will win matches and lose matches. It's very easy to fall into a spiral of losing game after game, and with every loss your playstyle degrades. When you lose several matches in a row, it's so easy to forget about the important things, defence, judging whether a matchup favours you or not, etc. etc. While it may be hard, try not to let a losing streak get you mentally. Often in ranked, winning or losing is out of your control, and it's much more beneficial to look at where you could improve on, so when you're playing in important matches, you don't make any dumb mistakes. Try not to play for hours on end, especially if you're grinding with one weapon. Playing hour after hour, day after day, makes you very susceptible to burnout, which from experience is awful. It may make sense to play Splatoon as much as you can, and while you may see a lot of improvement at first, at the end of the day you will come to a halt, and this can really affect your attitude towards the game. If you're feeling burnt out, don't be ashamed to put down the game for a few days. Refresh yourself, and you may be surprised by how much a break can help your performance. If you still want to play the game, but are feeling tired from grinding and such, maybe stick to salmon run or private lobbies, and just enjoy playing the game. So often people get lost in the competitive grind, and forget that Splatoon is a very fun game with much more to offer than comp. Try and strike a balance between comp and more casual play, and don't play an intensive session if you're feeling down or tired. It will just worsen your mood. For me, I like having plans for the week ahead, so if I have a tournament on a day, I know to prepare for it, but not burn myself out beforehand. When competing, make sure you warm up, and go into each match with a fresh mind. This applies in general of course, but when you don't have control of when you can play matches, it's a lot harder to keep a good frame of mind. If necessary, try to let off some steam during matches. Get a drink, maybe a bite to eat, and try to put a hard match behind you. It's also good to keep in mind how seriously you want to take a match. Not every match has to be played like it's a life and death matter, and while it may feel soul-shattering, losing 30 points or ranking down in solo isn't the end of the world. A good attitude like this won't come overnight, but however, try to adopt important attitudes like this in the long run, and I promise you that it will help you go further. Now let's move on to keeping expectations in check. When you first buy Splatoon, you probably don't have any real expectations, but as you grow as a player, you start to set yourself goals for the future. I think setting some long and short-term goals mentally is a really helpful thing, as you can track your progress versus expectations. However, there needs to be a balance between realistic goals and unobtainable ones. Try to set goals that revolve around practice or an upcoming tournament, like aiming to scrim 3 times a week and building a new set for a specific map mode combination. Longer term goals may be working towards a new looty division, or mastering a specific weapon you've been working on for a while now. Try not to make your goals that unobtainable, but at least make sure you need to work for them. There's no point in setting a long-term goal that you will reach in a week or two, but don't push yourself to hit unrealistic standards, especially if you're new to comp. Progress can be unpredictable, and you never know what may come up in your life, so don't be too disheartened if you fail to hit the goals you set. There is nothing wrong with putting real life priorities before Splatoon. And just keep a good attitude towards the game if you have less time to play it. And instead, invest the time you have into dedicated practice, making every minute count, so that means no playing backlines if you're usually the Slayer. Next up is your ability to change and adapt to weapons and such over time. The competitive scene changes over time, as will your preferences, so be ready to change things about how you play the game over a set time period. Splatoon is a team game, so sometimes you may need to pick up a weapon that you may not be too enthralled at, but you and your team need it. Try to keep a solid roster of weapons across your team, but if, however, something you play becomes near obsolete, it may be worth dropping it in competitive. It's also a good idea to keep your roster to a maximum of 4 to 5 weapons. Unless you play a flex role, then you can venture out of that. I wouldn't recommend one-tricking, but if you're passionate enough about a weapon and can make it work, it may be worth a shot. But be prepared down the line to adapt to changes in the meta. But why is the meta so important, I hear you ask? Screw this, I'll just play what I want. This is all well and good at the lower levels of competitive. However, the higher up you go, the harder it is to make lesser played weapons work. You may want to see where your weapon of choice shines and relegate them to those specific combinations. For example, I used to play chargers, splatlings and the explosion, but I wasn't improving properly with chargers, so I made the decision to drop the heavy and ballpoint altogether. I only use the Hydra in specific map and mode combinations, and I recently picked up the bamboo, as a more mobile option for clams maps where regular chargers don't fare too well. Lastly, while I still play the Explo, it's only on a few combinations, like humpback zones, and because it doesn't need the aim that chargers require, it's easier to keep as a pocket for the games that need it most. Being stubborn when it comes to this can hurt you in the long run, and the same goes for strategies in general. You may need to switch up how you play as a team every once in a while, maybe because of changes to the meta or a specific team you're fighting against. Things like this are a group effort, so strive to be on the same page when it comes down to decisions like this. It could be worth getting together once in a while and discussing the future, any changes or plans you may want to consider. The last thing you want is to become arrogant, then have it bite back after you're defeated by what should have been an easy team because you wouldn't adapt to the current competitive environment. This segues on to my last point, and that's treating everyone in the community with respect. In no way am I saying you need to get along with everyone you come across, but being civil is really important. While the community on the whole is amazing, there are times where it can get into spouts of drama, and it really isn't fun for anyone involved. Your teammates especially are the people you should be closest to, as you play together so often, and you need to understand each other to perform at the best level. It may sound cheesy, but your teammates are your friends, and forming bonds outside the game is a great way to help invest you in the community and play together as a whole. You shouldn't just stick to people in your team though. Finding scrim partners and such is very important. The scene can seem really intimidating to newly found teams, but the vast majority of people are happy to help you. I would recommend against going to high level plays for a while, as fighting people way above your skill ceiling will only result in disaster. I would focus on building a name for yourself in the community first and foremost, and building some good relationships that can help you connect with different people in the wider community. There are also lots of Discord servers that you can join and interact with new people in, so if you're that type of person, be sure to do that. Building a negative reputation will do no favours. It will make you less likely to find scrims and potential teams. It's also nowhere near as fun, and what's the point of playing Splatoon if it's not fun? Please just be mature and treat players you meet in the community with respect. It helps everyone. So that's all of those points covered, and to wrap things up, I just want to say that having a good mental attitude is halfway to becoming a great Splatoon player. Your mechanical skills are important, but not something you have full responsibility over. However, who you are as a player and how you perceive yourself in the community is down to you. Since I first bought the game back in 2017, I've changed and learnt so much from Splatoon and its community. Aiming to keep a good attitude and coping with defeat have been my latest goals, and it's helping boost my confidence in the long run. I hope this video helped you in some way, whether you be a new player or an experienced veteran. Please consider subscribing. We're on the road to 1k subs and I would love to have you here. And with that being said, I will see you all next time. Bye!